This is my prediction video for C314 Volkanovski versus Lopez. This week I'm going to keep it simple and not look too into superstitions or what ifs, no curses, no conspiracies. Just gonna keep it simple, keep it black and white. So for the first fight, Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopez. I'm picking Volkanovski and I'm leaning towards a decision. Personally, I think that if Diego Lopez manages to pull off this victory, it's probably because Volkanovski is just too old, too war-torn from the recent KOs he suffered. And I don't think Diego Lopez is as good as Alexander when you compare their histories and their previous opponents and their performances. I will be shocked if Diego wins. And it honestly might harm Alexander's legacy. Because if you lose to Ilya, that's valid. Islam, that's valid. Look at Diego's wins: Gavin Tucker, Pat Sabatini, Sadiq Youssef, Dan Ige, Brian Ortega. It's kind of just whatever. So I'm going Alex, and he might be a valid parlay piece. Next fight, Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. Gotta go Pimblett, maybe by decision. I think Chandler's too old. They just made this matchup to give Paddy some more experience in the octagon, but while at the same time giving him someone they can use to push him closer to fighting for a title. Because they want Paddy to win the title at some point, because apparently he's a pretty big star over there in the UK. So that's what the UFC wants. And Michael Chandler at this point he's just put into these fights to get wrecked so that his star power rubs on to his opponents. Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson. Seriously, his only win in the past 5 fights is Tony Ferguson? Wow. And honestly, he didn't look that good. He looked like he tired quicker than he normally does in his last fight against Charles. And if you look at Paddy's recent record, it's honestly not that impressive. It's not impressive either. Based off the youth of Pimblett, perhaps even the size, and Chandler being on his way out, going Paddy. Bryce Mitchell versus Gene Silva. Now, I hope Bryce Mitchell wins. And when you look at the fights stylistically, it seems kind of obvious that Bryce should just go for takedowns the entire fight and ground and pound or look for submissions. Just completely avoid the stand-up game. Basically should do what that guy last week did, who was just wrestling and threw 4 significant strikes the whole fight. I'm blanking on his name at the moment. But things aren't always don't play out the way that they should. And for some reason, I am very concerned that Silva's going to get another KO. There's just something about him. But I will be rooting for Bryce. And I will mostly avoid this fight overall, betting-wise. At least that's what I'm thinking at the moment. And not completely avoid it, because I'll have some parlays with Bryce Mitchell winning by sub, and on other ones have Gene Silva winning by knockout. Just depends on the odds, but I'll have both. Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull. I am at a loss for this fight, but I'm leaning towards Yair. And his last fight against Brian Ortega, I don't really fault him for that, because Brian Ortega is the type of fighter who, especially in this case, is overly friendly and kind and nice and respectful, bringing his kids around you to introduce you to his children and have you get to know his family. And I have a suspicion that he did that to weaken Yair's game, to make him less vicious, less intentional in his strikes. Because when they fought, I did not think that Yair was as nasty as he normally is with his striking, where it looks like he's trying to take your head off. But I think Patricio, I don't like how old he is or how short he is in this fight. But could be wrong. We'll see. This will be a fun one. One other thing to mention is these fighters that the UFC picks up from Bellator, like a Ben Askren, or Ritter was from somewhere else, I think. But when they get these fighters, I think typically they like to match them up in a way where they have a likelihood of winning. I don't know his salary, what he's getting paid for this, but I think That might actually help me make my decision, because if they're paying Patricio big money since he already had a name before coming into the UFC, they might want to get their money's worth by having him win. But if it's just a typical salary, then that might not be the case, because it's definitely not as much hype as it would have been if he had come to the UFC years ago. Next, Nikita Krylov versus Dominic Reyes. I'm going Krylov by decision. I know Dominic is riding a couple fight win streak. Anthony Smith is Anthony Smith. Dustin Jacoby, that's a little more impressive. But he lost to Ryan Spann. Yuri, losing to Yuri's okay. Losing to Jans. This guy lost to Magomed. That's okay. Paul Craig, I guess that's okay. He won against Gustafsson by KO. That's impressive. Volkan, it's a good win. Ryan Spann, decent win. So, similar in size and reach, but I just don't really trust Dominic Reyes' chin anymore. So I'll lean towards Krylov. Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. Toss-up. In the future, they should match Dan Ige with Patricio Pitbull, because they kind of look similar, don't they? I'm leaning here. You see I put Woodson. Very tough making this decision, but when you look at their fight history, their age, I don't know. I guess Sean Woodson, he's longer reach. Age is pretty much the same, but he's riding a decent win streak. Only has one loss. I think he'll be able to capitalize on this moment and get another victory. Versus Dan Ige, who's exciting to watch, but a win versus Nate, that's good, but it was a decision over Nate Landwehr. He's like a punching bag until you get tired and then he turns the tables on you. Lost to Bryce Mitchell. Andre Feely, that's not that, I mean, good for you, but that's not that impressive to get a win over Feely. Lost to Diego Lopez. Lost to Leron Murphy. That's a decent. Alex, Fernando, Charles Jourdain. I'm going Woodson. Next, Verna Jandarova versus Yan. Tough. I'm going Verna. She's a little more manly. Of course, she's a lady, but comparing the two, I think she's a little more muscular and similar age, height, and reach. We'll go with her. We'll go with Verana. Her last performance was impressive. And both these girls are tough, but that's where we'll lean. Chase Hooper versus Jim Miller. Chase Hooper. And if you cannot get a win over this almost 42-year-old man, significantly shorter than you, who you have a reach advantage on, and a significant youth advantage, then you ought to be ashamed of yourself. If you're looking for a big safety parlay, I could go Patty Pimblett, Chase Hooper. I don't know what kind of odds that'll be off the top of my head. So Chase Hooper. Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. Tough, but so tough. But I'm leaning Erosa. But Darren Elkins is a dog. He does not give up. But Christian Rodriguez is a dog. And Julian Erosa did well with that style. But I don't think he should be that big of a favorite. It is honestly a toss-up, but I'm leaning Erosa. Cedric Dumas versus Michael Olenjuk. Whatever. No, I got that wrong. So tough. Really tough. I think both these fighters are strikers. And you would think, looking at his loss, Borjalio is a good loss. A win versus Chidi is a good win. Piera, losing to him is okay. Losing to Kevin Holland is not okay, but it was a submission. Shara, all right. This guy, Josh Frem, Cody Brundage, Abu Uzaboyev. That's the one where he got eye poked and then the ref didn't stop it, I believe. And then the opponent just kept attacking him. Dennis, rough. Want to switch it up again and go with Cedric, with Dumas. And here you see I wrote just slightly Olek. I don't know. I guess I'll switch. Or maybe I won't. I don't know. Just know that this is a toss-up. It's not as simple as... And this guy should not be a minus 205 favorite. It should be a pick'em. Suma Durji versus Mitch Raposo. Raposo, of course, now that he got that opportunity to fight in the UFC against Andre Lima on short notice, I assume he's been training ever since then, 10 months ago. But Prior to that, I was not impressed by his performances, and more specifically, his opponents were kind of just over the hill, and he was not doing as good as he should have against those type of opponents if he's going to be a top caliber UFC fighter. And he did win one on one judge's scorecards, I believe, which was ridiculous because he got absolutely dominated the whole fight. And although Sumerdaji is riding a 3-fight losing streak, submission, decision, I'm still leaning towards him because at least this dude has all this UFC experience against real fighters. And that's why those odds make sense. You wouldn't think so because of all the losses, but definitely fading Mitch. And then Tresean Gore versus Marco Tulio. Just keeping it simple, I just gotta say Tulio. He's kind of hyped up because I think he's not with Mackenzie Dern. He's with some girl in the UFC everyone's head over heels for. Tresean Gore, Antonio Tricoli's whatever. Josh Frem, Cody Brundage, oh, that's embarrassing. Brian Battle. Go to Marco Tulio. Might even be safety parlay worthy with Patty Pimblett and Chase Hooper. Nora Cornhole versus Haley Kawan. No idea, but I see here when I was looking at this before I put Cornhole. I think it's because of the experience, but it's a woman's fight. They both have experience, so there's not much I can say about this. You're gonna have to get more info about this fight from somebody else. So those are my picks. Good luck to everybody betting on these fights. If I had to do a safety parlay, I would. And the safety parlay meaning picking the fighters who I think are clear winners. They're put into positions to win this fight. Get more experience under their belt. Their opponent is a can, right? And I genuinely feel like Alexander could be part of this. So let's just go like this. Alexander, Patty Pimblett, Chase Hooper would be the third. Almost Sumerdaji because Mitch Raposo's ass. And Marco Tulio. That would be 4 solid ones. I think are pretty much guaranteed winners. All right. Good luck to everybody. If you got any recommendations for parlays or something else you want to share, go ahead and put it in the comments. And hopefully we all win some money this weekend.